Hi, Pastor Steve here in Visalia, California. We are in the midst of a foggy but beautiful fall day. I hope it's nice wherever you are. I hope that you have peace this morning. Short, happy thoughts today on a subject that is near and dear to my heart. I want to talk about the ways that we react internally and externally when someone in our lives is acting badly in a toxic way, when they are doing things that harm us or harm other people, either emotionally or in other ways. Or conversely, the same situation when we see in ourselves that we've begun a behavior pattern that is negative and toxic and is hurting us or our family. I want to talk about the the best way to react to those situations. First, the most common way, all of us know because it's kind of common throughout the world, it's certainly a part of the worldly point of view, is to condemn someone like that, right? So to warn them, to tell them to stop it. And if they don't, then to be ready to take negative action, give them negative consequence. Oftentimes that includes shaming of other people. Again, as I talk today, it's sometimes about other people's behavior that affects us negatively. Sometimes it's our own behavior and the conversation is internally. But we try to shame people, right? So we say, "What's wrong with you? Why are you like that? That's stupid. That's wrong. You're a crook, or you're a liar, or you're not trustworthy." So we shame people and put them down, try to make them feel horrible about what they've done or about who they are. And the expectation is that somehow that removes the problem. But you may know if you've lived very long, it almost never does. If you apply shame to a person who is already engaging in behaviors that are likely shame based internally, all you do is you increase their shame and they will double down on the behavior pattern. It just doesn't work. It isn't that the case that somehow it's a moral wrong, even though it works all the time. It's a moral wrong, and it really never works. Very few, if any, people that I've ever met, including myself, have ever said, when people ganged up on me and they shamed me and they treated me like I was second class or worse than they were, I saw the light and I got better and I started to act the way I should. That's not how we're constructed. It's not how it works. When we have shame and pain and unhealed scars inside, sometimes when we're triggered, when something happens that triggers those memories, or when we just find ourselves in a situation where depression begins to set in, we act badly again, right? We act in practiced ways that can harm other people or can harm ourselves. So first is the easy recognition. The way that it feels like we should handle those situations is ineffective. Now, I know if you run a company or if you are in charge of employees or those kind of things, you may have to take action. So you might have to let someone go for whatever it is they're doing, but you don't have to let them go and shame them. You don't have to let them go and tell them it serves them right and they're a horrible person. You can do whatever has to be done gracefully, and you can in that way try to ease up on the shaming and give the person a little room to maybe improve their behavior pattern. The way that Christ taught his followers to try to learn to react to those situations, right, was, in his words, right, to go the second mile, to turn the other cheek, to forgive even your enemies. And you can think about that in a lot of different ways. At this point in my life, it comes down to don't shame them, right? If the situation has to be addressed, you can address it, and you can do so keeping their dignity intact, even if they're not acting in a dignified way. You can do so with a heart for them and an understanding that whatever the situation, whatever the person is doing, even if you yourself would never do that, there's plenty of things that you have done and would do that are negative and impact other people that way also. So when we decide to look at the situation and try to figure out what can we do or how should we react, we have to override the world's prescription, which is to shame and demean and to literally try to overpower and force another human being to act the way we think they should. And we have to try to learn to at least do no further damage to them if we have to take action, and where we're not responsible for letting them go or that kind of thing. If we're in a long-term relationship with them, it really is helpful to say to yourself, I get that, right? I understand. I know that in my life, when I'm triggered, yeah, and some bad parts of my past come to the fore, it causes in me a desire to medicate through behavior. And oftentimes that behavior is really negative. And I know that what's effective for me is to recognize that I'm triggered, to speak it aloud to a trusted confidant, and then to deal with the original hurt, and that takes some of the fuel out of my reaction to whatever has triggered me. In other words, if I get myself in a position where I can treat my own self gracefully and recognize the process that causes me sometimes to act in unfortunate ways or negative ways, I have a lot better chance of changing the behavior, of stopping it, and of being able to clean up the mess before it's too late. That's true for other people too. So if you're in a situation where somebody in your life is acting in ways you just think, what is the matter with you, right? You have to stop that. I would suggest to you today, the happy thought is this: try it out, right? It's free to experiment in this life. Try not condemning, try not using language that shames people. Try to see if there's an opening for you to come alongside them and remind them of what's good in them, and to inquire, if it's possible at all, about what's going on with them, right? What have they been thinking about? What have they been remembering from the past? See if you can find an angle into the other part of them. Here's a succinct way to say it: if we choose to see even our enemies as human beings who act the way they do because of hurt inside, we've taken a step forward in obeying what Christ asks of us. And we have a much better chance, really statistically, we have a much better chance of at least not increasing the wrong that is being done, and of being able to help somebody draw back from toxic or negative behaviors. It's a dicey thing, this relational life, both the way we relate to God and to ourselves and to others. And the more times we can apply grace, and the more times we can see the humanity and identify with the other person, knowing we've got our own rough spots when things are going wrong, the more we honor Christ. The more we honor Christ, the more his kingdom grows. So I hope that this helps. It's at least worth thinking about. Think about how you've been reacting to people in your life that are doing things that just make you very unhappy, or that you think is dangerous, and see if you can change your behavior, not only to help them change their behavior, but to change your own reaction. Last part of this happy thought: remember, when you condemn or shame or act in those ways towards yourself or towards somebody else, all that you are doing is demeaning yourself and acting in ways that, if you ever have a spiritual awakening or reckoning in your life, will cause you some deep pain and shame. It isn't true that becoming worse than the people who are doing things that we despise, right? To be more evil, to be more angry, to be more dismissive solves anything. It just makes things worse for us and for them. So try a new way. Try to look at the other person as a human being, or to give yourself the benefit of the doubt and see the best in you. Get rid of the shame. Don't add to it, and see if you can find new ways to deal with situations that are really difficult. I promise, right? It's an imperfect science, so to speak. It's an imperfect walk of faith. But the more you get it right for yourself and for others, the better the quality of your life. So I really hope that as we enter into November, which is the beginning of the holiday season, you will be thinking about this, and you put some practice into it, because likely you're going to have friends and acquaintances and relatives that are a part of your holidays, and you sure want to be able to act gracefully, and you sure would like to have the presence of Christ, the Spirit of Christ, in those reactions. So that's happy thoughts for this week. I do hope that you're in a good place. I hope you'll be praying for myself and for the Visalia Church, and for your church if this is not your church home. Pray for the leadership and the health of the church, that we can really be the presence of Christ. So God bless, and talk to you next week.